You are watching World at War with Dean Ryan, weeknights 10 p.m. Eastern, only on Real Deal Media.
Stars directing our fate, because that's what we have here at World at War. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, wherever you find yourselves here tonight. Welcome to the #1 late night shadow band show, World at War, here at Real Deal Media. I am your late night host. Yes, indeed, Dean Ryan. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And nothing's better on a summer day that's very hot than a nice Maldives Mandarin orange. That's right. Just makes you feel better than candy. I just want to, and I'm not being paid by them. It's just a suggestion, not an endorsement. Anyways, welcome everybody. Tonight's episode is called "The Rise of the Latin American Cartels." Yeah, Latin American cartels. It's going to be quite the story in the Real Deal International. We're going to be getting into just that as we've been hearing about the Maduros, the Sonelas cartels, the rise of Kokani, all kinds of things. Everybody's getting in on it. Even that little sweet secretary, Marco Rubio. Yeah. He might be here tonight, and I hope not. But we're going to be talking about the upcoming war that I see coming in 2026, if not sooner. But 2026 is the key and onward as the neighbors to the south this time, and even southern than Mexico, are now in question. We're going to be talking about, and it's our feature story here tonight, of just What is this going to look like? What are the maps looking like? I have it all, and I've covered this before, and it's now coming back into play. So we'll be getting into that here tonight. Also, on the show here tonight, besides the cartels, it's quite the circus. We're going to be getting into the Fed as the food epidemic. Yeah. You get a cheeseburger these days, well, you better mortgage your house because that's how much it's going to cost you. We'll talk about what that whole kit and caboodle's all about, plus some new smartphone tiny vibrations that might be good or bad in your little tiny ear holes. We'll be seeing what that's all about, plus some major American retail brands in retail, I should say, chain store restaurants are in major question, and some of them are saying bye-bye to California. Which ones are those? You'll find out. Some World War III news and some big real deal politics, as many people are now decrying the federales coming to their neck of the woods, their neighborhood. We'll see what that's all about in D.C., out of all places. Yeah, that district of criminals. And also, Kristi Noem is back in the news. Just because we'll see what she's now having come underway as the deportation planes are saying. We're asking, are they being deported? We heard about tuberculosis now and the dirty ICE facilities. I mean, what in Hades is going on, and what's happening in Hades too? I've often wondered. Also, speaking of just hell, well, Gavin Newsom is going to be a major player here tonight as he's causing a lot of damage in California. Yeah, he's the reason he should be flogged and tar and feathered. Also, we're going to be talking about some major Hezbollah news over Lebanon, as right here at the Hezbollah News Network. We'll see what they're doing and seeing why they're decrying themselves of being disbanded. They don't want to break up. It's not what they want to do. Plus, some Canadian news of more travel warnings. We'll see what that's all just coming about. It's just a very interesting. And then we're going to be ending on a health story about the miracle jabs, and it's a positive one if you're talking about exposure. So that's that one tonight. Just a quick mention, following tonight's show is going to be an incredible impromptu live in concert for our members only, with myself featuring, I'm a guest piano player tonight with a band called the Attitudes. So you don't want to miss that, members. Your links are in your proper trays there. You'll see it there following tonight's show. Okay, we are broadcasting live on TheRealDeanRyan over there on Facebook. Hello, everybody. It's so good to see you. I can feel the love. Even though it's shadow banned, I can still feel it. If not, I play pretend. And also, we're on Dean Ryan TV over there at YouTube. Yes, hello to all 5 of you. It's good to see you again. Close friends, and as well as Rumble. And that's all I'm allowed to broadcast on here tonight. Okay, let's get started with some real deal headlines from around the world and in your neck of the woods, shall we? Real deal headlines, because that's the way God made us, and God made rock and roll too, they say. Okay, well, here's just a little financials that's going on now, because we have to pay attention to them. And I know, because I'm a numbers guy too on occasion, but in this case now the Federal Reserve, which is really not federal, but in this case they're being divided. This is a big deal now. They're divided. And what does that entail? Well, they're talking about tariffs, how it's dividing their realities and their dogmas. That's right. Federal Reserve is now worried about tariffs, inflation, and the labor market. Yes, they are. They just had a meeting, and a summary depicted in a divergence of opinions. That's the most King's English to tell you there was some infighting and just, potential quasi-death threats in a smoky-filled room of conspiratorial henchmen, where they were voting to hold their key rate interests, and it came despite objections from 2 federal governors who argued in favor of cutting. Now, what are we talking about here is the Federal Reserve officials are worried that at their just most recent meeting about the state of the labor market and inflation, It's hard to balance, and it's like playing God, but with a deadly, deadly knife filled with cyanide. Though most agreed that it was too soon to lower interest rates, minutes released Wednesday showed anyway. They did it. Well, the meeting summary depicted the divergence of opinion among the central bankers who vote to hold their key rate steady came despite objections from two Fed governors who argued in favor of cutting. Well, policymakers noted rising threats to the economy that would warrant monitoring, though they largely agreed that their current stance was the appropriate way to go. Well, someone who's familiar with the matter said the following. They said, quote, participants generally pointed to risk to both sides of the committee, emphasizing the upside risk to inflation and the downside risk to employment. At the end of the day, nobody got along, and we're not sure which way the wind or the tariffs are going to blow, but we're in for a real roller coaster ride. Yeah, so they're going to be cutting interest rates, which is going to get people to probably start buying homes and buying condos, renting cars and what have you. And then what they do is they jack up the interest rates towards the end for major, major crash to bring in the great financial reset. You see, who remembers 2008? I do very well. It's just like yesterday. So there's a lot of confusion. They don't even know what the hell is going on. And who does these days? Continuing now. Well, that brings us now to skyrocketing beef prices. Yeah, you know it's true. You know it's out there. And we've all felt the pinch. Yes, that very, very, very peculiar pinch when it comes to the food epidemic now, as beef prices are soaring. Meat lovers are not deterred in any way, shape, or form, they're saying. No, they're not. No, they're not at all. Well, the one of the largest meat dealers out there, a seller for U.S. deli producers out there, called Walter Avalos, well, typically got instructions once a year to hike red meat prices up. Now it's every week, not just once a year. That's right. Red meat prices are skyrocketing in the United States, the world's largest consumer and producer of beef and only beef. But veal prices surged, for instance, 11.3% just last month in July alone. Now, according to the most recent Consumer Price Index report, which I read every morning, it's not just the U.S. where consumer beef prices are reaching record highs this summer. Oh, no, don't be fooled by that. Well, somebody who is an insider and familiar with the beef said he's changing his own grocery shopping habits, as many in the WEF, well, they told us to do a long time ago. Well, for instance, they said they used to buy meat every single day. Now we get 2 pounds and we try to make it last all week, an insider said. Now, the consumers are not worried one bit. They're still eating. We're a very beef-oriented culture here in the United States, from Texas to California, all the way to the New York steak. You betcha. Well, in this case, the tariffs could be affecting the beefs. While domestic drought conditions have hit the U.S. cattle supply once again, and the mRNA, yes, those variants of love have also hit the beef and their lovers as well. Well, beef lovers now have to reckon with another shock, as the Trump administration's tariff wars seem to be affecting the beef as for now. So, yeah, I mean, the idea of buying a steak at a grocery store, that's something you got to save up for. You can't just go to Sizzler and get the shrimp and the steak anymore. It's just astronomically high. So that is part of the foodemic, and that's all by design and planned, and we should be happy for it and thankful. That's what they're saying. Well, speaking of that, speaking of happy and thankful, well, now you can have the opportunity to eavesdrop on your neighbors or just about anyone you want to, as new technology is now being dispersed as radar eavesdropping, as now your smartphone's tiny vibrations could reveal private conversations. Finally, I've always wondered what people are saying. Well, in this case, they're wondering and no more, because they can hear you and everything you're saying. Well, here's some of the facts about it. Researchers over there at Penn State demonstrated that the millimeter wave radar can detect the microscopic vibrations from the smartphone speakers, allowing partial reconstruction of conversations from up to 10 feet away without hacking or breaching encryption. Well, this is quite a fruitful discovery here. Now, Many people who are trained with AI and familiar with it, they said the new vibrations and cops could be using this too. Oh, yes, this is very geared for that demographic. Well, they're achieving 60% of accuracy at 20 inches now. Now, corporate spies identify thieves and malicious actors. It could exploit this method without telecom cooperation. Yes, it does. Now, the study highlights how advancing technology goes well beyond just the AI and the computer and the video game. Now, AI is in our radars and they can hear everything you're saying. Isn't that right, AI? Yeah, see, there's always somebody there to listen to me. Yeah, and remind me. Moving on now, well, that brings us to Indiana, a very unusual place, but not a very common place for people who, I guess, don't want to kill a presidente. Well, now an Indiana woman arrested for gruesome Trump assassination threats. You know, you tell Kathy Griffin to just cut it out. And what does she do? She moves to Indiana and continues. How is she ever going to learn? I just don't get her these days. Oh, wait a minute, someone else, excuse me. Well, here's what we know now. A Lafayette woman was arrested in D.C. after posting graphic threats to ritually murder President Trump. I'm guessing with the goat head. That's my first guess. Well, she admitted to owning the accounts, possessing a weapon, and calling Trump a terrorist during Secret Service interviews. Yeah, see, she hasn't learned. Her threats now escalated over 2 weeks, including demands for Trump's arrest as a terrorist in a violent Facebook post. Now, authorities warn her case reflects a broader trend of politically motivated violence fueled by inflammatory left-wing rhetoric, which is, that's some huge stuff now. In closing, prosecutors emphasize the seriousness of the presidential threats, but call for accountability in media and political discourse. Well, it's about time they call for political discourse and unity and seriousness of presidential threats. I mean, who was doing otherwise before? Moving on now. Well, that brings us to now Bed Bath and Be Gone, as this is now happening and it's underway now in California. Once again, no surprise. Well, the Bed Bath & Beyond franchise, I'm sure everyone is familiar with the betting in this case as the Bed Bath & Beyond franchise under the executive chairman, Mr. Marcus Lemonis. Yes, Mr. Lemonis. Life gave him lemon, and that family made Lemonis out of it, as they announced today that it will not open or operate physical stores in California due to high taxes, strict regulations, unsustainable wage mandates, making profitable unfeasible, and for the fact that the California governor is a real asshole. Well, this decision underscores broader criticism of alleged governor, I should say, Gavin Newsom's policies, which are not really his. He's really cheating off the Asian kids in his class, cheating off their homework, called Xi Jinping and the CCP. Yeah, those guys. Now, amid the exodus of the business from the state, with social media reactions amplifying calls for policy reform to address California's challenging environment. It's so challenging. We just don't know what to do. But thank you, Gavin Newsom. What a POS you are. Moving on now. Well, that brings us to Cracker Barrel, who's now being called Woke Barrel. Yeah, can you believe that? Well, apparently there's new controversy now with the Cracker Barrel logo. Are you familiar with this? And have you been to Cracker Barrel? And what did you get when you were there? Well, now Cracker Barrel's logo overhaul fuels fan backlash. That's right. I woke up pissed off and I didn't know why. Well, now I know. Cracker Barrel unveiled its first logo redesign in, get this now, 48 years. 48 years. What's the rush? Shifting from the iconic image of the elderly man by barrel to a sleek text-only design, something only an individual from West Hollywood would love, or a girl who just yaps too much. I don't know. I'm not sure. And guess what? It's the CEO, Julie Fells Messino. No connection to the Laminos, but Messino defended the change as a strategic move to modernize the brand and attract younger diners amid declining sales, while preserving its elements now. Yeah, she's preserving the elements. She's very caring. As now they're going to keep the rocking chairs and biscuits. However, the overhaul triggered many fierce online backlash and potentially a death threat from that one woman. We're not sure if it's ritualistic or not. Well, social media users labeling it, quote, woke, which I thought was killed, but it came back again, as a erasure of nostalgia, leading to calls of boycotts, widespread criticism from influential accounts. Well, I didn't... I must have missed the boycott for the Cracker Barrel, but, when in Rome. Well, here is what I'm talking about. Here is the CEO. That is Cracker Barrel's CEO right there. CEO Julie Feiss, Messina's project. She is probably the WEF certified. She scrapped the beloved American aesthetic and replaced it with sterile, soulless branding. Yes, she did. Yeah, she thinks yeah. Look at that. Look at 4 eyes over there. Kept DEI regime and the promise to identify, recruit in advance hires by race. And now faces civil rights complaints from many American legalese out there. She should resign, be replaced with leadership that will restore Cracker Barrel's tradition. Yes, of serving, I believe, cold biscuits. That's what I remember. And, I'm starting to see a trend out here. I don't know about you. I don't know what the trend is, but it's a real weird theme. Don't you think? I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. Moving on now. Well, finally, as we close the headlines tonight, I'm sad to report that reading for pleasure falls a whopping 40% in the U.S. Now we have to read for pain and discomfort in case the environment asks us to take that little overhaul of our logos. Well, in this case now, yeah, so reading is now down 40%, a real sad state of affairs. I guess nobody likes to read just for fun or just because anymore, as the reading for pleasure in the U.S. is now declining more than 40% in the past 20 years, according to analysis over there at a thing called Daily Lives of Americans. While supporting several smaller studies that suggest fewer people are using their leisure time to read. No. Well, that's kind of true. I just looked at the pictures when I had to do book reports. Well, the analyzing data from the United States government's American Time Use Survey. Well, researchers at the University of Florida and the University College London found that, get this now, 250,000 Americans surveyed, the proportion who read for pleasure on an average day fell at 28% in 2003 to 16% in 2023. It's just a small dip. Yes, un poquito. Just a small dip, but it's getting even worse now. The study included any kind of reading done for enjoyment or purposes other than work and school, including ebooks, screen, or listening to audiobooks, as well as traditional books, newspapers, and so far, no account of romance novels, which, that's what I do for my pleasure reading. Don't you? Anyways, that's our real deal headlines. Let's now get to some World War III, because there's a lot going on. Here we go. Bring us down. World War III. Let's talk about it, and let's be about it too, shall we? Let's be that change. Well, now Russia's in the news, and I can't think of a time they're not in the news. That's the hard part. Well, now Russia warns that, quote, there will be no peace, and threatens to seize more of Ukraine. Yeah, as they should. I'm not against that. Who wants to live next to Ukraine and Zelensky? Can you imagine? Yeah, just, can't blame them. Well, military experts now in Russia have now claimed that there will be no peace in Ukraine as the U.S. attempts to broker a meeting between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr drag queen Zelensky, while Donald Trump welcomed the Ukrainian president and European leaders to the White House on Monday for talks on ending the war, prompting an angry reaction in the Russian media, with one newspaper claiming, quote, a powerful political bomb, yes, has been planted against Moscow. I agree. Now, Muskowski and Komsomolets, yes, It's a rare disease, but it's also the name of a gentleman who reports on the news over there. He said, well, quote, much of what was discussed in Washington was, quote, unacceptable to Russia in reference to the security guarantees for Ukraine. Now, Moscow-based newspaper claimed that Mr. Zelensky, that's very kind, it's fun to gender him, isn't it? And the European leaders, which included the Sir Keir Starmer, lover of all rental boys, managed to pour sugar into the gas tank of the successful negotiation process, which had begun at the U.S.-Russia summit in Alaska days earlier. Yes, it did, while claiming that it's not the, quote, final or irreversible. It's just a bomb, and it's coming our way. So there you have it. Nobody's happy about it. So they're warning they're going to take more Ukraine. And, hey, you got to do, everyone deserves the right to be happy. So if that's what it costs and that's what it means, go for it. Well, continuing now. Well, now there's now a new declaration of no troops. No troops. Read my lips. No troops will be sent to Ukraine. Well, we hope that's the case. And usually it's not. But in this case, we hope. Well, yeah, now Trump's refusing to send U.S. troops anywhere in the Ukraine. So far, no talks about anywhere in Iran or Israel. In this case, yes, Ukraine's out. Trump rules out U.S. ground troops over there in Ukraine, but leaves open the possibility of the air support despite escalation risk. Yeah, what does that mean? Well, Russia's relentless strikes show Putin won't back down, while Zelensky's refusal to compromise prolongs the war. Now, U.S. taxpayers have already spent, get this now, I'm about to cry and throw up at the same time. Our tax dollars for that stupid money laundering, biolab riddled, trafficking whorebag of a country, Ukraine, we have given them $175 billion. Billion dollars with a B. And that's just for Zelensky's cocaine habit. We don't know. We don't even know how we paid for the war. So we're just paying in drugs at this point. God, that pisses me off. Anyways, $175 billion on a conflict that enriches defense contractors but drains Americans' resources. Yeah, this is the big problem. Yeah, the real Congress and Senate of this country are called the American defense contractors. How about that? Those are the true congresswomen and men, not Lindsey Graham. That's just a very confused woman. Well, now Trump pushes for direct talks between Zelensky and Putin, urging compromise to end the war before it spirals further. Well, I hope when that happens, Putin ends him. That would end the war real fast now. The only way to stop the bleeding, he says, is to cut funding, force real negotiations, and refocus on America's own priorities. Yeah, you think? So, we need to stop playing this international just negotiator travel agent here and get back home and hell with these people. That's how we see it there. Continuing now, that's going to bring us to, this is very stunning, this next story here, as it now talks about a whistleblower who saw things and knows things and is seeing patterns as well. Well, get this now, documents now reveal CIA aided Israel's theft of U.S. nuclear material, shielded terrorists as well. Well, this just happened just the other day over there in Las Vegas. The right-hand man of Netanyahu, who was caught, doing some underage, very bad things in the sexual nature with children. Well, he got off scot-free and had a red-eye flight, first class, back to Tel Aviv. Very interesting. Well, James Angleton, CIA's counterintelligence chief, secretly partnered with Israeli intelligence to bypass U.S. oversight, enabling nuclear material theft and shielding Zionist terrorists. Did you know? Probably not. You heard it here first then. And well, this is coming out of Natural News, so you heard it with us. Well, Israeli agents diverted hundreds of kilograms of U.S. weapon-grade uranium from Pennsylvania's uranium plant over there via covert operations approved by James Angleton, the counterintelligence chief of the CIA. Now, the CIA under Angleton released Zionist Aragon members after the 1946 bombing of the British embassy over there in Rome, if you recall, all the way back in 46. Yeah, that's right. Well, the declassified files show that Angleton deceived Congress, withheld evidence of nuclear espionage from Israel, and disrupted FBI probes into the missing uranium. Now, documents also reveal that Angleton's ties to Israeli intelligence were honored by Mossad, underscoring the long-standing security concerns about U.S.-Israeli alliance. Yeah, long-standing, current standing, and nobody's happy about it, and especially not this cat right here. So, and that's some World War III news for you. So, yeah, we have a problem in this country, and it's not overseas and like, Ukraine necessarily. It's right here. We have espionage, we have treason, and we have a good 80 years of it. Where do you want to start? So that's going to bring us now to some real deal politics. Let's get to it here. We have a long way to go. Okay, real deal politics. Let's get to it. I mean, you know, it's so disheartening. By the way, that last story, I cannot tell you. It's so disheartening to understand and realize that this is all being declassified. This is all being declassified and revealed by whistleblowers, and nobody in these lapdog, urine-soaked medias in the mainstream, the lamestream, nobody's going to be talking about it. Nobody. Because they don't want to get, some of them don't want to get killed because the Mossad works in mysterious ways. Yes, they do. They are good at their job, but it's so disheartening. I cannot even express it. Well, here's something that's disheartening too. Is now the DC Federales is now underway in the overhauling of DC. Yes, it is occupied. Yes, GOP sends the National Guard to Washington, outcries, and look at the pain of that face right there. Look at the pain there. A lot of pain. I'm in pain too. Well, let me tell you a bit more about it now. As the GOP states send National Guard to Washington as outcry grows over the Trump power grab. 6 GOP states to be exact. 6 Republican-led states have pledged National Guard troops to the Trump administration's takeover of D.C., where it's assumed control of policing under the claim of tackling crime, along with the D.C. National Guard that had already controlled the area brought there by Trump. Now, this brings the total number of troops in the streets of the Capitol more than 2,000 troops. Now, the federal takeover comes even as violent crime in the Capitol is at a 30-year low. 30-year low. Yes, it is. It's a low crime, well, a lot of death. Well, numbers that Trump administration now dispute with the Justice Department, just them, not us, launching an investigation of whether those crime statistics were manipulated by city officials, pencil pushers, or they have a malevolent AI. Here's a quote from someone who's familiar with the crimes. They say, quote, "What we're seeing is lawlessness, but it's all coming from the White House." Now, this is coming from activist Kaya Chatterjee. Yes, she's a chatty activist who said that and is now making a stance as they're now protesting around the White House. Now, Tennessee has become the 6th Republican state to agree to send the national troops into D.C. to assist the takeover, and some other states as well. What are those, you might ask? Well, we're talking about Louisiana, Ohio, South Carolina, West Virginia, and Mississippi are also sending their National Guard. So this is going to be a real watershed moment we haven't seen in this country probably since the 1960s. And how excited are you? It's thrilling, isn't it? Continuing now, well, that brings us now to the truck drivers. Yeah, the truck drivers, the 18-wheelers, Smokey and the Bandit, the whole lot. Red Moose, Blue Squirrel, we all know the code words. Well, now this is no different now as truck driving and the issuing of CDL truck driver licenses. Well, you would think it would be hard these days, and it is hard, and don't ask me why, but in this case, illegal aliens are now truck drivers. How is that possible? Well, now Trump administration targets the illegal alien truck drivers, and he's having another look, checking the list twice, 3 times now, declaring that the CDL crisis is a national security threat. I agree. And a lot of the trafficking is done in that demographic as well. Trump's executive order mandates English proficiency for commercial drivers and audits for non-resident CDLs following fatal accidents. That's right, a Florida crash caused by an illegal immigrant driver with a California CDL highlights systematic risk. The Biden-era policies allegedly enabled asylum seekers and migrants to operate commercial vehicles with minimal oversight. Now, states like California accused of lax enforcement and sanctuary practices are central to the controversy. Yes, they are. Advocacy groups like American Truckers United link the crisis to the national. So, yeah, this happened. I'm sure you heard about the fatal crash weather in Florida. The crisis transcends traffic safety. Oh, yes, it could be a terrorist debacle and a real boondoggle, too, if I might add. Yeah, so if you're becoming a truck driver out there, prepare for hell. Now, I'm moving on to Kristi Noem, who's very misunderstood and just really gets a hard time these days. And, I totally get her emotions, but that's a different story. Well, Kristi Noem is pushing for ICE to buy and operate fleet of deportation planes. Custom made. Yes, she is. She's very, very intricate. Yes, and very, very, chummy too. Well, the Homeland Insecurity's Secretary Kristi Noem is pushing for Immigration and Custom Enforcement to use an influx of funds to buy, own, operate its own fleet of airplanes to deport immigrants. With two sources familiar with the discussions now told that alleged news organization over there, NBC News, just that. Former officials said the ICE owning and maintaining its own planes would be costly, but hell, what isn't these days? You heard about Ukraine, $175 billion, but it could make it easier for the agency to potentially double the number of people it deports each month. So yeah, there you have it. We're going to be seeing double-decker airplanes, shag carpeting, little disco ball, a little dancing pole. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. Well, speaking of disco balls and, just a little love, well, that brings us to a gay scandal that's rocking the GOP. Yes, it is. It's knocking and rocking. This is huge and quite embarrassing. Well, let me tell you a bit more about it because when these scandals happen in the Republican Party, it's going to be very, very salacious. Guaranteed. So, yes, that's right. A gay sex scandal is now exploding the Republican. As married men and a sighting member of Congress have been accused of sleeping with male escorts, even as their party thunders about traditional family values. Did you hear that? Lindsey Graham said, "What? There was a party, no one invited me?" You see? Yeah, that's what happens when you're focused on war all the Washington, D.C. Well, amidst all the troops navigating the end of Posse Comitatus, all that stuff is going down in D.C. while Sundays faces renewed scrutiny over its hypocrisy on the homosexuality stance, publicly championing the traditional nuclear families, while privately indulging in the very offbeat behavior many Republicans denounce. You mean there's hypocrites in is MAGA haunt, they say, followed by the late nights, he told the Daily Mail over there, on the condition that neither the man was identified. Now, the unnamed lawmaker is closeted, cautious, and very, very much so in the shadows now, carrying the weight of the public image that left no room for who he really was, the escort said. Well, he also went on to further state that, quote, "It's gotten difficult to ignore the dissonance between the man I know, the man in the street, and the man in the sheets." Yes, he is. It's also worth noting that the Republican congressman, who's now not named, is now engaged to a woman, while another escort has came out of the woodworks from a steamy room. A 35 5-year-old with a chisel bodybuilder physique was also very casual in the we should close it off, and how fitting. House Speaker and Father of the Year, Mike Johnson, the man who just adopted a 14-year-old boy when he was 26, which is totally healthy, totally normal, and no one bats an eye to it. Well, he called same-sex marriage, quote, the dark harbinger of chaos and sexual anarchy. The hypocrisy is okay. I am back. I'm back. Sorry about that, everybody. This is what happens when the controversy comes into play here. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to see what the hell's going on here. It's very, very interesting. When we get back, we're going to continue with our Real Deal International and our feature story of the night of the Cartels. You don't want to miss that. But, you talk about these things, you talk about these things. It just happens. Anyways, you're watching World at War. We'll be back after this quick message, and we'll continue on and hopefully soldier on too. Don't go anywhere.
Listen to this leaked video from 2001 where Netanyahu is already mapping out today's massacre.
צחוק ופשוט הם לא יכולים לסתובב.
זה מה שמביא אותם
ואז רגע, אבל אז השוק מהעולם יגיד מה אתם כובשים? אתה לא מפחד מהעולם ביבי.
במיוחד היום עם אמריקה, אני יודע מה זה אמריקה. אמריקה זה דבר שאפשר להזיז אותו בקלות, להזיז לכיוון הנכון.
הם אומרים שהם בעדינו, אבל כאילו...
לא יכניעו.
אז אם אנחנו עושים לזה משהו, אז הם...
יש עליה, נניח שהם תומכים משהו. 80% מהאמריקאים תומכים בה. זה אבסורד, יש לנו שם תמיכה כזו, ואנחנו אומרים מה נעשה עם ה... הממשל הוא היה כמו פלסטינים בצורה קיצונית. לא פחדתי לתמרן שם. לא פחדתי להתאבד עם קריטה, לא פחדתי להתאבד עם חובה.
Well, I am back, but not so fast. Become a night owl still. All you got to do is be iconic, not ironic, and go to RealDealMedia.tv and join us following tonight's show for members only. You don't want to miss this. Very, very, very impromptu, yet very special engagement here. Live in concert. The Attitudes featuring Dean Ryan. Don't want to miss that as the guest keyboard piano player here tonight. You don't want to miss that. Become a night owl. We will have you join us tonight. And also, before I forget and get turned off, as everything's going haywire here tonight, don't miss out on the Tsunami Sale, that is. It is almost over. The Tsunami Sale is now featuring, the Jim Kahuna and Little Kahuna, yeah, right there. But featuring this, a wonderful collector's item cup of the greatest surfer of our time, the wonderful Jim Fetzer, yes, as the surfing U.S. Open champ. Don't miss out on that. For more, please visit RealDealMedia.tv when you get a chance. Okay. Well, everything is very slow on my end, and it's getting me very angry. Welcome back, everybody. I'm still Dean Ryan, your cruise director, cruising with you to midnight and beyond here tonight. And then we'll be having a wonderful, wonderful time after here. Okay, so now we're going to get into our feature story here tonight. And we're going to be talking about the cartels. And we're going to get into a long version of a segment of just what that entails. Because, when we're talking about a lot of these South American countries and even Mexico itself, it's not necessarily just talking about Mexico or South American countries. It's talking about the heavy behind them, China. Because the world has been consolidated into the superpowers, consolidating and divvying up countries and making them their proxy states, their proxy countries, their very close allies. Just as an example, the Panama Canal. Who would have ever thought or known that it was the Panama Canal that we built and gifted back to the people of Panama through Jimmy Carter? But yet, China came and completely took that sovereignty away and hung it on their little wall. So that's what we have to keep in mind. So when we hear about Venezuela, it's not necessarily Venezuela that's making the fentanyl. Venezuelans are for lack of better terms, they're the mules. So the gangs over there. So they're running the drugs. So that's something to know. Okay, so let's get started by going all around the world with our Real Deal Internationals, and let's take us on the yes. Well, here we go. Real Deal International. Excuse me. Things are just out of control here tonight and beyond my reach. Well, that's right. We're going to be getting into our feature story here tonight about the rise of the Latin American cartels, which is a very serious thing. We're not just talking about drugs, everybody. We're talking about human trafficking, and we're also talking about mercenaries. Let us not forget, in 1995, the then alive Joe Biden before he died, him and Hillary Clinton, well, they hired 2 mercenaries from Brazil to come into the States to kill John F. Kennedy Jr. It's on record. It's on the revealed files of the FBI. Well, in this case, it's a little different now, as we're now going to explore just exactly what this whole kit and caboodle is about now, as the inexorable rise, they're saying the skyrocketing, the meteoric rise of the Latin American drug cartel, with the global cocaine business booming as never before. Are you aware of that? The 70s are coming back. Organized crime groups are diversifying now into a swath of other illicit activities. Now, over the past century, over there, the Tecunas, the biggest tribe in the Brazilian Amazon, have fended off threats from loggers and illegal miners in some of the most remote tracts of the vast rainforest. Yes, and I would see, if you've seen Fern Gully, you might understand what I'm talking about. But the latest challenge is more intense than anything they have ever experienced before. Now, drones were flying around everywhere in these far-off regions because what they're trying to find is the right land they can grow the product. So informants said there was 200 kilos, for example, of drugs stored there in some of these far-off rainforest places. And as somebody who's been to Guatemala, I can tell you it's certainly the case. Guatemala, and what the CIA has done to Guatemala, just for example, and Nicaragua, but in Central America, but that particular country, the highest murder per capita in the world, Guatemala City, very dangerous, yet the poorest of the poor, but that's where the CIA, they grow their drugs. Air America, or the movie escapes me now, but we all know what I'm talking about. Air America is a good movie with Mel Gibson that depicts exactly what I'm talking about. So that's what's happening now. The traffickers pay locals to smuggle just a few kilos downriver, or they hide larger amounts under the floorboards of motorboats. At the end of this scale, crafts, submarine crafts dubbed narco subs, capable of carrying several tons of drugs, have been detected on rivers now feeding the Amazon from Colombia and Peru. Now, you have to imagine buying directly from these cocaine producers for a $300 a kilo and then selling it for a refined kilo at 60,000 euros over there in Europe. Now, that changes the life of a guy who's just trying to make a buck or two. Now, the global cocaine business is booming as never before. Europe's drug habit has grown so fast in the past 2 decades, and that's just the House of Parliament over there in England. It's even overtaken the U.S. as the biggest cocaine market, while narcos are now hooking new users in the Middle East and Asia. Flush with money. Now, Latin America's cartels are diversifying. Yes, they themselves have DEI as well. Who would have ever thought or imagined that? From drugs into swath of other criminal activities. Now, somebody who's familiar with the kilos, well, they said that, quote, "We think 2024 was the most lucrative year ever for organized crime in Latin America." See, crime does pay, everybody. I think that's what we're learning here. He said it was driven principally by the 3 criminal economies. The first is cocaine, lagging not far behind. That is gold. Number 3 is human smuggling and human trafficking. Now, drug-related crime and violence used to be concentrated in the narcotics-producing nations like Peru, Colombia, and yes, Mexico. With nations such as Argentina, a lot of that too is you have a lot of former CIA people, when they retire, they'll move to Costa Rica, Argentina, or Chile. That's where the Bush family resides too, their family homes. So violence now, they're saying, has become a feature of life in virtually every country in the region, reaching even former havens of Costa Rica, Uruguay, a nation of 3 million people, sometimes held as the Switzerland of Latin America because of its relative peace and prosperity. Organized crime has become the main threat to the institutional stability of our nations, they're saying. Former president of Costa Rica, Laura Chinchilla said, no Latin American country today can escape this. So it's gotten so bad now, Something I saw coming down the pikeway as far back as 2018 is a looming war with Mexico, who, in my opinion, is definitely no friend of people up north of them. They've let free passage of migrants come in here. I was there on the border of Panama and Costa Rica in 2015, when Obama was giving free passage and free citizenship to Cubans. And there's about 4,500 of them. And now this is what the White House has to say about it.
Venezuela, and there's 4,000 Marines on board. Are you looking at the possibility of boots on the ground there?
What I will say with respect to Venezuela, President Trump has been very clear and consistent. He's prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. In Maduro, it is the view of this administration, is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this cartel who has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into the country.
Well, this is where some of the ships are said to be right now over there in Venezuela, because that's where it's all leading up to. This is on the heels of Presidente Maduro making the statement yesterday that he's going to offer $50 million bounty on Trump, and he told his sleeper cells in the cartels to rise up to the occasion. Rise up to the occasion. So this is crazy. So, you put it all into perspective here. I mean, let me show you this shipment here. This is what we're talking about. You want to see how much cocaine is being just trafficked? It's unbelievable that you would think that Scarface was just a movie, a fiction. Well, guess again. Here's what we're talking about. Look at this. So, yeah, look at these guys sleeping on the job. Well, somebody needs to wake them up. How should we do it? So that's the kind of cocaine. That's the amount they're bringing in through these submersive submarines all the way from Venezuela onward into Mexico. Then the Mexican Presidente, she gets her cut, and then the Chinese do as well. But traditionally, Chinese have always liked opium a bit more. So, yeah, this is some serious stuff. Now, just to be that guy, I have to ask, how has the war on drugs benefited anybody? Have we lost more people to drugs themselves, or the actual war on drugs and the unintended consequences and the shrapnel that kills just, bystanders in these countries? Do they get accounted for? Are they just collateral damage? So the prospect of the unilateral U.S. military strikes on any of these gangs, all these drug gangs, has now alarmed many Latin American governments, as you can imagine, who fear violations of national sovereignty. Oh yeah, so this is going to get it's going to get crazy. Now, Brazil, as I told you, Brazil is a main factor. A lot of henchmen, a lot of mercenaries come from there. It's a very violent country. But let's go a little further here. As now we kind of make our way back to Mexico and Venezuela, because it's very concerning, and a war with Latin America is it's not what we want. Let's just put it that way. So let's continue on our excursion here as the time proceeds us as we sunset and we prepare. Okay, here we go. So now as we continue our rise of the American cartel, the Latin American cartels, well, yes, now that brings us to the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Not the old ones. It's a new one, like the new Black Panthers, then there's the old ones. They operate with impunity in around a third of the country's territories, of the U.S., that is. According to a new assessment by the head of the U.S. Northern Command, drug bosses have unleashed a bloodbath now. Around 45,000 people a year are killed and disappeared, mostly presumed dead. By comparison, the entire European Union, with a population nearly 3.5 times greater, recorded fewer than 4,000 murders in 2023 alone. Now, the once peaceful Pacific beach destination, the Mexican state of Colima, had the highest homicide rate of any state in the country for 8 of the past 9 years now, and is on track to top the ranking again this year. It's the highest number of mass graves per capita in the country over there in Mexico, many in the rolling green hills at the edge of the state. Now, Colima State, that is home to one of Mexico's largest ports, the Manzanillo, which handles 40% of the country's maritime container traffic and is a key entry point for the Chinese chemicals used to make fentanyl. You guessed it, which is a part of war. It's part of the soft kill. Hard kill, dropping the bomb. Hard kill is I just dropped that. Anyways, like I was saying, hard kill is dropping the bomb like they're doing in the Middle East. This is a form of soft kill on the Americans and the West as we know it. Now, what cartels want is to control ports. And that's why they're teaming up with the Chinese. And that makes things a little dangerous and makes things potentially ready to go kinetic. Now, to achieve this, crime gangs send their warriors to come out and fight, he says. So he's familiar with the port. He says that it fits a pattern across the region over there in Mexico. Ports have become very important because you can't move tons of cocaine from Mexico and from Brazil to Western Europe. See, Brazil is the middleman by flying small aircraft like you could over there in the United States. Now, citizens across the Latin America are demanding answers to the problem. Yes, they are. A whopping 52% of people in Latin America's 6 biggest nations named crime and violence as their top worry. It's true. Chinchilla over there, if you recall her, says the frustration is leading to extremes, to two extremes of policy in the region. One which simply prescribes more jail for everyone, while the other says just adapts to new forms of criminal governance and acceptance. Wow. Imagine that. And we have that here in the U.S. The lawlessness is definitely a thing. We know police precincts, the LAPD, NYPD, the levels of corruption in the city cops is huge. And if you see something and you're a good cop and you see corruption, you see abuse, and you speak out against it, they come after you, i.e. Christopher Gordon. Let us not forget him and what he was trying to tell us. So there you have it. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, many people have said and asked, well, what about El Salvador? Well, that's interesting, too. As someone who has been there, it is another lawless kind of place, though. Although it's getting cleaned up. But, you go to a strip club and there's people to greet you there with sawed-off shotguns. It makes your experience that night a little nerve-wracking, if you know what I mean. Well, the Nayib Bukele, or the Presidente over there in El Salvador, has alarmed rights activists, but delighted admirers across Americas with a ruthless crackdown on gang crime that has put 1.6% of the adult population behind bars. Ecuador's conservative president, Daniel Noboa, is trying to copy some of Bukele's methods. Yes, he is. He is the mirror image of that in his policies. And so these are the frameworks. And now it all comes back to Venezuela. Now, if you don't recall some of my coverage of Venezuela, there's two main factors and key points of it. Is number one, I should say honorable mention, is the CIA, whether it was Bush in power or Trump, they have been trying to overthrow and control Venezuela, that region, for a long time. You also have Russia in the region, who's now bringing and moving gold bullions to the country. You have China there as well. China trains and arms the Antifa, as we know it, who then brings and ships their movement, their troops, to places like Oregon, Portland, and Seattle, then trickles down to California. So that's one key point of Venezuela. It's also the major trafficking hub of fentanyl from China that's being delivered by the ports. Remember, China owns roughly 85% plus of the ports around the globe. So that's the kind of war, that's the kind of proxy war we're fighting. So the takeaway is soft kill is fentanyl. Fentanyl is not necessarily just smoking fentanyl straight, but it can be sprinkled, leaked into other pharmaceuticals and can kill some of the most loved ones that you cherish in your life, as well as the poor people of Central America and Latin America as a whole. So what war and the drug war in this case, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing except for business, because at the end of the day, government doesn't want you to do drugs. They don't want drug dealers because you know why? They hate competition. And that's how I see it. Okay, due to time constraints, we're going to end it there. I want to invite all of our members to join us for a festive night here as live in concert, The Attitudes featuring Dean Ryan on piano, backing keys. We're going to be joining that and starting that soon. That's how that one goes. Okay, tomorrow I will be back in my old neck of the woods and regions for a whopping Thursday night filled with surprises for our college night tomorrow night. So you don't want to miss that. So anyways, I want to thank you for joining me here on this excursion into Latin America. Hopefully we learned something and we should do some follow-ups on this. And it's just incredible to see the amount of war and the defense contractors, the amount of just payola they're going to be getting in the next few months. So that's my final thoughts, is just say no to the drug war, because it's really a war on you. And in that case, okay, so for everyone here at Real Deal Media, I am Dean Ryan. Thank you for sharing a bit of your night. Always remember to stay tuned and stay awake. Good night, everybody.
I've got bad disease from my brain is where I bleed. Insanity, it seems, it's got me by my soul to squeeze. With all the love from me, with all the dying dreams I scream, in angels in my dreams, it turned to demons of greed. Where I go, I just don't know. I've gotta take it slow. When I find my peace of mind, I'm gonna give you some of my good time, yeah. Today the love's fight on me. You took away my pain, said please, I'll let you ride for free. You gotta let it be to me. Where I go, I just don't know. I've gotta take it slow now. When I find my peace of mind, I'm gonna give you some of my good time, yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah, 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 yeah.